Hey guys, welcome back to another mock draft. This one, 2 rounds, both the first and the second. Not a weird, we're doing the first and fourth round. That would be fun though. Anyways, we're going to kick things off real quick, jump right into things because it is 64 picks that we're going through and we want to get through things as quickly as possible. So I will, yet again, seems like we're doing this every time. I'll pass the reins off to you, Elijah, and you can kick us off with the Titans pick at 1.
Yeah, it feels like maybe for our final mock draft, you'll have to be the one to kick us off because this is a trend that has just persisted. But at number 1 with the Titans, I'll go ahead and I'll say the obvious, Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. They just have showed their hand, not adding anybody to the quarterback room, and we got 2 rounds to get through. Let's just move on.
Yep. At 2, we've got the Browns going with Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State. They have many needs. They've been rumored to be linked with Travis Hunter a bit, but I just can't get over the idea of that defensive front with him and Myles Garrett, and I won't. I just think that's way too appealing to pass up. So we've got them going with Abdul Carter here. Some people's best talent in the class, depending on if you believe in Travis Hunter or not, but the Browns take him at 2.
Yep. And at pick 3, we have the Giants here, and this is a trade. We're doing trades in this. And, it's 2 rounds. Let's get a little wacky with it. Starting off with trades in the window of pick 3, we have the Jaguars trading up from pick 5 with the Giants to pick 3 to select Travis Hunter, corner out of Colorado. So the trade details would be, sending 3 and a 5th round pick and maybe a future 5th round pick. And then the Jaguars, they would give you 5 and they would give you pick 36. So the Giants are adding some draft capital, even in that 2nd round, which we will be mocking in this video. And this was like a realistic, the trade values aligned for this. And, why not trade up for Travis Hunter? And when I get to pick 5, I'll go over why the Giants would have traded back out of Travis Hunter. But Jaguars see the top talent at pick 3 still here. Let's give up a 2nd round pick to get a guy who can play 2 positions effectively, worth 2 picks.
It's an interesting way of looking at things, but yeah, definitely worth the trade up. And that leaves the Patriots in a weird spot here at 4, where they're sitting here. They wanted Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter to fall to them. Now they're not really in love with any of the prospects here. Maybe they could take Will Campbell, but when the Bears call and they say, hey, we want to jump the Raiders because we want Ashton Genty, the Patriots say, all right. So the trade details here would be the Bears sending pick 10, pick 39, and some late round comp for pick 4 and late round comp from the Patriots. So it's very similar to the Jaguars trade, where we're just adding a 2nd round pick to the Patriots in exchange for moving down a little bit. And the Bears would obviously be trading up to take Ashton Genty, running back out of Boise State, again jumping the Raiders, who we have long had taking him when he gets to pick 6.
Yeah. And, when it comes to these trades, we definitely got a little bit into Ben Johnson's stash. We've got some real fun ones happening in this video. And that leads me to pick 5. After the trade down, the Giants are sitting here, and they select Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. So here's my imaginary situation, right? You have a quarterback. You have a quarterback situation that's very muddy. You don't have a quarterback. You have a coach and a GM who are on the hot seat. They are coaching and GMing right now for their careers, and they hit this draft, and you have 2 really muddy veteran quarterbacks. And then you get Shedeur Sanders through the draft as well. This is a team I could very easily see work through all 3 quarterbacks, because I don't think Russ is going to be very successful. Jameis would have a 4-game stint where 2 of the games he looks phenomenal, and 2 of the games he throws 2 interceptions, and then you would end up putting in Shedeur Sanders. So Shedeur Sanders at pick 3, easy lock. You could take him. You don't risk anybody else taking him. But at the same time, you know that you need some more draft compensation to make a better team for this year, because you're GMing and coaching for your job. So they take that extra comp, they get that extra 2nd round pick, and they still get Shedeur Sanders just 2 picks later. I think that while this wouldn't be every Giants fan's biggest dream for the draft, I think that it definitely gives the coach and the GM some safety blanket behind those 2 really muddy quarterbacks they have.
Yeah, and just so we're clear, in those 2 good games Jameis Winston has, he also threw 2 picks in each of those games, but he just also
it was
threw
like 500 passing yards.
Yeah. So then at pick 6, we've got the Raiders. Obviously, we've had them taking Genty a lot. He's no longer here, so we've got them going with Mason Graham, D-tackle out of Michigan. He and Christian Wilkins would make a very formidable pairing in the middle for the Raiders, and with quite a few holes on the roster, but kind of at the same time, the ability to take best player available. Graham, I think, is a no-brainer, especially again with Genty off the board.
Yeah, that gets us into the Jets pick at 7, and we have them kind of opting away from that pick that we usually make for them, where they do end up going tackle. We have them going with Will Johnson, pairing him up with Sauce Gardner after they lost DJ Reed to free agency. You really shore up your secondary for a coach that was a former corner. So I think, this is certainly a fun ad, especially when you add to the fact that there's a good chance that Aaron Glenn was watching some Michigan prospects thinking he might still be on the Lions, and they do like to get those guys from home.
For sure. At 8, we've got the Panthers taking Tet McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. The Panthers do have a lot of needs. Wide receiver is not the only one, but getting weapons to support Bryce Young after investing heavily into the interior of the offensive line last offseason kind of feels like a smart move. Tet will fit in nicely, giving Bryce a hopefully reliable target in Carolina alongside the ever-aging Adam Thielen and the spotty Xavier Legette.
Number 9, the Saints. We have the Saints adding Will Campbell. We've had him fall to 9, and I think that they really would opt to build the trenches with a guy who is local, stays in state, and even has some of that, guard tackle question marks. They really just need to build up the O-line as a whole. They did make some additions to tackle, so I would imagine him moving inside for the Saints here.
Yeah, and then the Patriots at 10. I think if Campbell had fallen to 10, from what I've seen recently, they definitely would be taking Campbell at 10. They might be taking him at 4. So, but we have the Patriots at 10 taking Armand Membu, the tackle out of Missouri. He played right tackle his entire collegiate career, and the Patriots kind of need left tackle more than right. But I definitely see them saying, hey, try yourself out at left tackle. If it doesn't work, cool, we've got a right tackle of the future. But they don't need a right tackle right now with Morgan Moses playing there for very likely this season and not next season. So I think it would be a bit of a band-aid at left tackle while fixing the problem for the future at right tackle, and maybe, if things go perfectly, actually fixing the problem at left tackle. So I think that's a better plan than a guy who might only be able to play guard.
Yep. At pick 11, we have the 49ers selecting Jalen Walker, linebacker, edge, hybrid linebacker out of Georgia. Now, if there's anyone that I would hope to use him in an intelligent way, it would be Robert Saleh. He would make sure that, hey, we're going to give him those snaps at edge, and we're also going to have him drop back from the edge as well, and really utilize the fact that he plays that hybrid role so well. And it'll be a good step to rebuild the roster, making him be a versatile piece in a defense that has lost a lot of those pieces they've had.
Yep, and then the Cowboys at pick 12 take Jihad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. Back-to-back linebacker picks, another kind of versatile guy, much less so than Jalen Walker, but still good. And the Cowboys have needs across the entire defense. Jihad Campbell is just the best player available on defense. He'll be an immediate plug-and-play guy to assist the Cowboys and a hopeful difference maker to pair with Micah Parsons as centerpieces of that defense.
Yeah, at pick 13, we have the Dolphins adding Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. Instead of reaching for some positions that they do need but have already been drafted that you'd be taking the third or second guy of, we have them going ahead, sticking at this pick and drafting Malachi Starks, filling the hole that Javon Holland made when he left in free agency, and kind of, getting that top guy on their board at a position versus the second or third.
Yeah, at pick 14, this one is very simple. Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State to the Colts. This is the pick. If he's here, the Colts are taking him. We're not overthinking things. We're not going to go into explanations. This has been our pick when Tyler Warren's been here every single time.
Yeah, if you need an explanation, look at their past tight ends receiving yards from last season, and that's all you need. At pick 15, we have the Falcons, and what? Overthinking. We never do that. Here's Mike Green, the edge out of Marshall. Yeah, we've never had the Falcons draft an edge player before, so I'm glad we're doing something new with this mock draft.
Yeah, and why haven't we done that? They kind of really need edge help, right? Like they've.
I know,
it's kind of their
like
biggest
shocking
need. They traded a third from Matt Judon last year. At 16, we've got the Cardinals taking Jahdae Barron, cornerback out of Texas, another pairing that we've done so many times before, but it just makes so much sense. Give a great corner to a team that needs corners, and that's really all there is to it.
Yep. At pick 17, we have the Bengals sitting here. And, the Bengals, they hear their phone ring, and there's a certain team that owns pick 38 and 39, and It's the Patriots. The Patriots just got that pick from the Bears, and they're looking to trade up here to draft. I'll let you take it over here.
Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. This would fix our wide receiver problem, ideally. He is somebody that I've a few people that I genuinely hold great opinions of, like their opinions. He is on their love list from this class, and I think he would be a great pairing alongside Diggs and Pop Douglas in the slot, and just kind of be a nice outside guy to give Drake May a better target, something that he desperately needs. And if we were able to walk out of this draft with a tackle and a great, like a top wide receiver, that would be more successful than any Patriots draft in recent memory.
Yeah, and you took your swings in this one. You traded back out of a range where you could have easily gotten a solidified tackle, got to 10, and you still got Membu, and then you take that swing, trading 2 seconds up with the Bengals. And, for the Bengals, they do need extra capital. They do need to address the fact that they don't have a defense right now. And that plays very much into the Patriots' strengths, having those 2 second-round picks.
Yeah. And then
this is back to you.
Yep. Then at pick 18, we've got the Seahawks taking Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman guard center out of North Dakota State University. Hate you for writing that. The Seahawks need interior offensive line help really, really badly if they want Sam Darnold to work out. And with the Patriots jumping them for Golden, where they also kind of need receiver after letting Tyler Lockett go and trading DK Metcalf, it's time to pivot to interior offensive line. And Gray Zabel is a name that I have not really seen mocked this early, but with the need for the Seahawks and the lack of better options at other positions of need, I think it just makes sense.
Yep. At pick 19, we have the Buccaneers here, and they're going to be drafting edge. We have them going James Pierce Jr. He's kind of been one of the consensus top of the board, but also has these underlying off-field issues. And if they are to overlook any off-field issues, because you are drafting the football player, you need him to play football, and it's not like his off-field issues are like crimes. So you go ahead, you draft the guy to kind of address the position that's the biggest need after the Buccaneers kind of retained a lot of players to Band-Aid up their other needs this past off-season. They go ahead and they address the one that actually left.
Yep. Then at 20, we've got the Broncos taking Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. Another pairing we've done before. Tyler Warren would be a great piece for the Broncos and for Sean Payton, kind of playing that Taysom Hill role. But there's almost no chance he falls to 20, and I really don't see the value in trading up to get a kind of chess piece at tight end. There's just not as much value there. Loveland might not be as versatile, but he's still a great tight end prospect and will be a great piece for the Broncos and for Bo Nix in his development.
Yep. At pick 21, we have the Steelers here, and with a good chunk of all of the top talent at the top positions of needs gone, you would expect that at pick 20, or 21, but you would expect, maybe somebody slipped through the cracks. Here, there really hasn't been. So we have the Ravens, a inter-division trade-up going on with the Ravens moving up to 21 to select Michael Williams, edge out of Georgia. With this, they would be giving up just a third-round pick, giving the Steelers a little more flexibility to maybe trade into the second round later in this video, as they currently don't have a second-round pick.
Then at 22, we've got the Chargers taking Kenneth Grant, D-tackle out of Michigan. Jim Harbaugh guy, help the interior D-line. Not much to overthink here yet again.
Yep. Then we move to pick 23, where the Cheesehead, the Packers, are selecting Siobhan Ravel, cornerback out of ECU. With Jair's future pretty uncertain with the things that happened this past season and offseason, we have them adding a corner to the room to shore up that position for the future. And while this could be considered easily a little bit early for them, it's kind of the best value they get at any position of need. They're kind of like a BPA team right now, but they've got weird little issues that prop up at certain positions, corner being one of them.
Yep. Then at 24, we've got the Vikings taking Tyler Booker, the interior offensive lineman out of Georgia. The Vikings sit here with very few needs, but to put J.J. McCarthy in the best position to succeed, beefing up their offensive line seems like the move. Interior offensive line is not like a dire need as much as it is for a team like the Seahawks, but it's not something that's completely shored up and not something that's off the table for the Vikings with one of their very few picks in this draft.
Yep. At pick 25, we have the Texans taking Kelvin Banks Jr., the tackle out of Texas. Once again, we've had him slip to really go somewhere local, and it's obviously just such an easy pick. You pick him, and he's a day one starter for you. Texans went ahead and they traded away Laramie Tunsil. So filling that hole immediately. is a home run pick here for the Texans.
Yeah, and if they decide that he's not ready to go day one, they did sign Cam Robinson. So Cam Robinson is kind of the band-aid of the of the left tackle market. He went to the Vikings after Darisaw got injured to be a band-aid there, and now is at the Texans, where we assume they'll take tackle in the first round, and he'll be a band-aid in Houston. Then at 26, we've got the Rams taking Donovan Jackson, the guard out of Ohio State. The Rams don't have a terrible offensive line, but some of their weaknesses were exposed in the playoff game versus the Eagles. Again, a really tough team to play against, and it's not like, oh, the Eagles got pressure on you, you need to rebuild your offensive line. It's just a really good defensive front. But this pick shores up the offensive line in hopes that that same fate doesn't befall them again this season.
Yeah, and with Donovan Jackson slotting in to fill the void from Josh Simmons' injury, playing tackle for some of the season at Ohio State, he definitely does have that versatility of you can draft this guy early and he can play at multiple positions for you and be that valuable piece. Even if he's not starting, you have someone go down with injury, he can easily be your starter. Then at pick 27, after their trade back with the Ravens, we have the Steelers here. We have them selecting Jackson Dart, quarterback at Ole Miss. After their trade back, they're kind of prime position for a late round value quarterback here, and it's their biggest need heading into the draft. You're not going to go in with Mason Rudolph being your only option. And so instead of repeating the Kenny Pickett failings of the past, you're trading back and being intelligent by adding more capital, being able to have more team while still getting yourself a quality quarterback.
Yep. Then at pick 28, we've got the Lions. Whoa, I get a Lions pick? If they're taking Shamar Stewart, edge rusher out of Texas A&M, and I will hand it off to you as you did for me.
Yeah, with Shamar Stewart, you're getting a guy who didn't really have the pressure, or he had pressure numbers, but that's really all he has. He doesn't have production on finishing anything. Pause. He goes ahead and he's an athletic freak. He will generate pressures just like Aiden Hutchinson does. And eventually, with Aleem McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson, Shamar Stewart, you're going to have a vicious rotation as well with their deeper players. And someone's going to be getting home with this huge amount of pressures that will be generated. Then at pick 29, we have the Commanders here. And we have them going Nick Amonroe, safety out of South Carolina. Despite having corners be a pretty large need, they attempted to do a little Band-Aid fix with Marshawn Lattimore. And I think that with more time and more positions being added to that group in the first and second, we definitely don't want them going another reach at corner, because we had said, the Packers are reaching on corner here a little early. And yes, we're later here, but Siobhan Ravel, I feel, is that corner you would hope to be in this range. So here they're adding a safety. They're going ahead and they're increasing their secondary. And you're able to also get those corners at a more value position sometime in the second round as well.
Yeah. Then at pick 30, we've got the Bills taking Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Mika's a guy I really hate to see falling this far. I think he is one of the most sure talents in this class, where he's not super flashy or anything, so he's not like a top 10 pick, but he's got great hands, great route running, just an amazing player, and he's yet another person out of that Ohio State wide receiver pipeline that has produced so much great talent in recent years. The Bills tried to add Amari Cooper last year, but that wasn't as effective as I thought it would be, or as you thought it would be, or as anybody thought it would be. It really just didn't work out. Egbuka would immediately change the look of this offense and give Josh Allen a more secure target, and hopefully play the Diggs role without the personality of the Diggs role.
Yep. At pick 31, we have the Chiefs here selecting Josh Simmons, tackle at Ohio State. Now, due to his injury, Josh Simmons is a steal here for the Chiefs. And despite adding Jalen Moore and Juwan Taylor being there already, they're both kind of like Band-Aids for the moment, because they both are only there for 2 years. And I could see this pick setting the Chiefs up to escape Taylor's massive cap hit by taking his, I can't remember what the years was from the start of his contract, but he has an out in his contract with minimal dead cap. So being able to use that out because you have Josh Simmons waiting in the wings would set them up for the future with this pick here.
Then at 32, last pick of the first round, we've got the Eagles taking Donovan Ezraku, edge out of Boston College. The Eagles are one of the more complete teams that we've really ever seen, I feel like. But losing some pieces this offseason, Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, has given us a bit of a direction to go, at least with their picks. And we see Ezraku as a replacement for Josh Sweat on that defensive front.
Yep. Then we get to the second round. We got pick 33 here, starting off the second round with the Cleveland Browns, and we have them selecting Omarion Hampton, the running back out of UNC. Now, this is really just feels like a no-brainer. We have Nick Chubb, who did not reform to form the way that you want him to, and you're going to go ahead and put the young buck, the workhorse, the guy who can contribute in every way possible out of the backfield at pick 33, add him to the offense. Now, do I want to see Omarion go there? No, but he slipped into the second round. I think that this is just a no-brainer for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I've seen a lot about how there will probably be 3 running backs taken in the first round. I see it. We just kind of didn't with this mock draft. The way the board fell, it just didn't make sense for any of the teams above to take running back with the other positions on the board. But that brings us to pick 34 with the Giants, taking Luther Burden III, wide receiver out of Mizzou. Burden is another name that we've placed inside of the top 20, I feel like, in mock drafts before. But here we've got him falling, and the Giants need more than just Malik Neighbors at wide receiver, especially with Shedeur Sanders as their prospective quarterback. Burden gives them a great wide receiver 2 or 3 to help him out as much as possible and put him in a position to succeed and put that coaching staff in a position to not lose their jobs.
Yeah. Then we get to pick 35, where I have the Titans, and after addressing the need at quarterback, and there's no Abdul Carter on your roster because you went ahead and you got Cam Ward. They're addressing edge here. They're going to go ahead and add Nick Scorton, the edge out of Texas A&M. You're filling the hole that Landry made when he left.
Then at 36, we've got the Giants again after their trade down earlier with the Jaguars, and they're going to be taking Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. Now with the offensive additions out of the way, the Giants look to fix their defensive issues by taking a guy to pair along with Sexy Dexy.
Yeah, the Sexy Dexy does so much for the defensive line, but you kind of have to make some addition next to him to really skyrocket his production as well. And that leads us to pick 37, where we have the Raiders selecting Trey Amos, the cornerback out of Ole Miss. We saw the Raiders pass on the cornerback early in round 1, thanks to Mason Graham slipping, but we won't do that twice. We have them adding to their secondary behind a stellar defensive line because at the end of the day, even if they're getting home on 50% of the snaps, you still got to cover for 50% of the snaps. So we have Trey Amos going in to help that cornerback room.
Here at pick 38, we've got the Bengals after their trade back with the Patriots. This was one of their 2 picks that they got in exchange for the 17th pick. We've got them taking Benjamin Morrison, cornerback out of Notre Dame. The Bengals traded back again from their initial first-round pick, acquired 2 seconds, and this was the best way to get them as many defensive players as possible. And Lord knows they need as many defensive players as possible with that weak-ass defense, and possibly getting weaker with losing more players.
Yep. And then back-to-back picks. We have the Bengals here again, and we had some fun with trades, all right? I said we got into Ben Johnson's stash. The Bengals, they're looking to get some value here as well, trading back once again. So this pick has been exchanged between the Bears, the Patriots, the Bengals, and now it is in the hands of the Dolphins, who are trading up to select Ariante Ursary, tackle out of Minnesota. Now, this is them moving up for a guy that we really haven't had slip out of the first round that often. Ever since we kind of became aware of him, we've had him going somewhere in the first. But now we have the Miami Dolphins, moving up to get their Teron replacement.
Then at 40, we've got the Saints taking Derek Harmon, the defensive lineman out of Oregon. The Saints need so much help everywhere, basically, but interior defensive line is something that can definitely help out a struggling defense. Getting pressure up the middle is a surefire way to make your edge rushers feel more effective, and edge rushers feeling more effective is how you mask a bad secondary. Harmon will make an impact on that unit and help the Saints build, starting with the trenches as we had them do in the first round, flipping sides of the ball, offensive trenches round 1, defensive trenches round 2. Quarterback is obviously a possibility here with the Derek Carr news about his possible missing the season, or at least missing the start of the season, but Harmon is I think a better value than any of the quarterbacks here.
Yeah, and another thing to consider there is that you have a new head coach. You don't have a desperate head coach. He's not looking to make a quarterback because he needs to win these first few games of the season. He's looking to build up the team so he has success in year 2 and 3 moving forward.
That's code words for tank for Arch Manning.
And then, which it's the Saints, it's very much in the cards. At pick 41, we have the Bears, and after their trade up, we still have them going as a best player available team. and adding Xavier Watts, the safety out of Notre Dame. We think that he would just be a quality addition for their secondary. And, there's no necessary big holes or big shoes to fill immediately day one, but you give him the chance to move in and make a contribution somewhere along that defense.
At pick 42, we have the Jets. Again, we had them target offensive line in the first round in basically every other mock, but this time around, Will Johnson was the pick. So here at 42, we have them taking offensive line to fix that, or attempt to fix that unit. This time it's Josh Connerly, the offensive tackle out of Oregon, attempting to fix their needs at O-line in the second round again rather than the first.
At pick 43, we have the 49ers adding Jaden Higgins, wide receiver out of Iowa State. Now, the 49ers traded away Debo, and tensions are kind of high with Brandon Ayuk as well. So we have them adding an outside wide receiver, a big body that can really contribute in the passing game. You already got Ricky Pearsall to kind of play that little slot role that they might be filling him in as the Debo guy. So going ahead and adding another outside guy in case anything happens with Brandon Ayuk is definitely in the cards here for the 49ers.
Then at 44, we've got the Cowboys taking Quinshon Judkins, running back out of Ohio State, over Travion Henderson, who has kind of been the consensus over Judkins that I've seen, at least recently. I'm still confident that Judkins will be a great running back in the league. He's a big body back that will repair a much damaged running back room. Unfortunately, it just has to be done in Dallas.
Yes, unfortunately. With this pick, and as you had mentioned, the running back comparisons from the Ohio State running backs, I feel like this one fits the Cowboys mold more. As Henderson kind of is that guy who is being talked up a lot more, he just doesn't feel like a Cowboy in the same way that Quinshon Judkins does. It feels like they're kind of going to seek that Zeke role more than they would anything else.
Yeah, he doesn't feel like a Cowboy because he's better than Judkins, so wouldn't be a pick the Cowboys would make.
They have to pick bad players because, as Jamie Foxx would let you know, they'd be tracking some of the wrong measurements, all right? If you know, you know. But that leads us to pick 45, where we have the Colts selecting Maxwell Harrison, cornerback out of Kentucky. He's an athletic corner that can play outside opposite Charvarius Ward, and this just kind of feels like the best value pick after we saw them kind of take a non-best value pick with the drafting a tight end in the first, but it's kind of a necessary evil for them to do, drafting a tight end that high. Then we fall back here. We see them taking a valuable contribution to the team on defense.
At 46, the Falcons, apologies if I butcher this name, we have them taking Azaria Thomas, cornerback out of Florida State University. The Falcons took an edge rusher in round one, something much needed and something we have had them do in every single mock. Now with Thomas falling to them at 46, they can add a corner to play opposite AJ Terrell and help out on the back end and kind of rebuild that defense with the first two picks in this draft.
Yep. And at pick 47, we have the Cardinals here, and we have them adding Tyleik Williams. Sorry if I butchered that name. Defensive line out of Ohio State. And after they've added Josh Sweat, they're beefing up the interior at this pick. We're going heavy on defense because it's the Cardinals, and we always go heavy on the defense for the Cardinals. We go ahead and we are adding them here. So they have the ability. They have great pass rush now with Josh Sweat. They have the interior help. And they got Jada Barron to play in that secondary, very much creating a formidable defense here.
Give Jonathan Gannon the unit he deserves. Then at 48, after their trade back with the Dolphins, we have the Bengals taking Alfred Collins, the D tackle out of Texas, another defensive addition to a team that needs defense. This is a rebuilt unit that will hopefully not suck this time around and maybe, possibly, make it so that Joe Burrow doesn't have to drop 50 to win a game.
Yep, and as some deeper intel on this pick here, I opted to go this because when we were having our conversations and I'm looking at their team, they have a lot of 3 techs at D tackle, and they don't really have a big formidable guy to slot in for any obvious rundown, for those 3rd and 2s or the 4th and 1 at the goal line. I think Alfred Collins would play great in that role for them. Meanwhile, they still have their 3 techs to play that rotational thing that they have been doing at defensive tackle. Then, at pick 49, we once again have the Bengals. So we had 2 different instances prior to trades, or after trades, where the Bengals were picking back-to-back. One of them stuck, one of them didn't. Here, we have the Bengals adding Jack Sawyer, edge from Ohio State. They're going hard on the defense, as they really, really should. And it's time to add great defensive talent at edge. And you know what? He's from Ohio State. He looks the part. He's going to be a Bengal. All right. He passes the eye test.
It's in state. We're keeping the boy at home. You know,
Sure,
Ohio and
that's why.
Ohio. That's exactly why. Then at 50, we've got the Seahawks taking Trey Harris, wide receiver out of Ole Miss. The Seahawks addressed issue number 1 in the first round. It's time for issue number 2, their wide receivers. And Trey Harris is a big body outside receiver to replace the other Ole Miss big body outside wide receiver that they let go to the Steelers in DK Metcalf.
At pick 51, we have the Broncos here, and we have them selecting Drahavion Henderson, running back out of Ohio State. We had them opt out of taking Omari in the first, but they're able to draft Drahavion here. Hell of a consolation prize, I would say. You get an electric prospect who has been getting very high-end comps of Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's going to definitely go in the first because he's great and just has all of this real big hype train behind him. I think this is a home run for the Broncos, taking the value in the second round pick of taking a running back.
Definitely. Then at 52, we have the Seahawks taking JT Tuyamalo, edge rusher out of Ohio State. After fixing their 2 main issues again, fixed issue 1, fixed issue 2, the Seahawks can now address a slightly smaller issue of the defensive front with JT. Again, it's not like a huge problem, but it's definitely a weakness on the defense. They've got solid secondary, and their front is where they could really improve there.
Yep. At pick 53, we have the Buccaneers. We have them taking Carson Schwessinger? Schwessinger? Linebacker out of UCLA. Sorry if I messed up your name, but hey, we are going to keep rolling. The Buccaneers, they're in a good spot. You know, we had said that they had really addressed a lot of things in the offseason. They were able to add to the edge in the first round because it really felt like their biggest hole, but they also have Anthony Walker being linebacker too. So no hate to Anthony Walker, sorry, but I have them adding Carson Schwessinger, linebacker to UCLA, to, really add to that group.
I hope Schwessinger goes in the first round. I hope he's a top 10 pick. All right, at 54, we have the Packers trading back with the Browns. And this would be the Browns trading up, I believe, from their 3rd round pick. So apologies to the Packers fans of the world, but no 2nd round pick for you in this mock. And we have the Browns trading up to take Jalen Milroe, quarterback out of Alabama. I cannot see a possibility where the Browns go into next season with Kenny Pickett as the only viable option at quarterback. I don't care if Kenny Pickett says he didn't come here just to hang out and he sees himself as a starter. It's Kenny Pickett. They're going Jalen Milroe. They simply will not go into next season with only one option. And Milroe at least brings some intrigue. He's a fun player to watch. Extremely fast, extremely electric running the ball. Hell of an arm. He's really just Justin Fields with a little bit worse processing, which Justin Fields' processing wasn't really that good to begin with. So that's why he's a 2nd rounder, but a very electric player that I would, hate to see in Cleveland, but love to see in Cleveland.
Yeah, especially when you pair him with what we had them take at the start of this 2nd round, and you add Amari and Hampton, and now you have a really option heavy, I would imagine very read option heavy offense where you have a mobile quarterback and you have a bruiser, and then you also have a little bit older of a bruiser with Nick Chubb. You would kind of bring in a great option offense, at least you would hope, if this was the selection. At pick 55, we have the Chargers here, and we have them selecting Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa. They are selecting running back, and while Caleb Johnson wasn't the most effective running back against playing Michigan, which would have been Harbaugh's coach team, I do think that it's probably because Harbaugh really game planned for Caleb Johnson and made sure he wasn't that effective. And then also there's 2 Michigan D tackles in this class going pretty early. So I feel like there's kind of a foretold reason as to why maybe Caleb Johnson didn't go off against Michigan. I think Harbaugh would have played against him twice, liked what he saw, and really drives the force here to go running back in the 2nd round. He would be leaning Caleb Johnson.
Definitely. Then at pick 56, we have the Bills taking Andrew Mukuba, safety out of Texas. Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin are both solid safeties, but Mukuba gives him another option at safety. If not assisting elsewhere in the DB room, he's athletic. He might be able to play nickel or slot or somewhere at corner, just be a chess piece in that defensive back room. Somebody to hopefully alleviate some of the pressures that we saw on them on that DB room in the playoffs against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and then you add to that, as you said, Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin, they're both solid safeties, and you can maybe get a good rotation going, keep them a little fresher, or move one of them two down into the box a little more frequently. That it just opens things up for them, and we also really like Andrew Makuba. At pick 57, we have the Panthers, and we have them selecting Landon Jackson, edge out of Arkansas. The Panthers' draft picks are few and far between, and after taking Tet in the first, the defense needs a little bit of love. And, I think with this addition here, they go ahead. They've been talking a lot about how they need to have a strong defense to play the kind of football they want to play. This is an addition to the defense to help with that.
Then at 58, we have the Texans taking Jonah Savainea, offensive lineman out of Arizona. The Texans had a bad offensive line last year and blew it up in the offseason, releasing some players, trading some players. This is their second attempt at fixing the issue after taking Kelvin Banks in the first. I've seen a lot of kind of question marks about, you already had a bad O-line, why'd you get rid of the players? But you can't have a bad O-line and keep the bad O-line. That's not an option. So blowing it up,
you can't keep paying the bad players.
Yeah, blowing it up and getting some new picks, new players in there is definitely smarter than keeping the problem unit the same.
Then at pick 59, we have the Ravens. We have them doing something a little bit fun, in our opinion. This is adding Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU. Last season we kind of saw the decline of Mark Andrews, and this move is made to ease into the post Mark Andrews era. It's not necessarily going to be a contributor this year, but Mark Andrews coming to an end. Isaiah Likely has been the upcoming star for them, and they really like running two tight end packages. So you add Mason Taylor, you get him accustomed to the scheme and everything you run, and then in year two, when Mark Andrews is likely declined even further and is gone, you are able to add in a solid second tight end who's already accustomed to the entire offense.
Definitely. Then at pick 60, we have the Lions, who I'm taking again, taking Tate Ratledge, offensive guard out of Georgia, and I will let you take it away from here.
Yeah, athletic freak, and quite the mullet on him. I can't say I'm a big fan of the mullet hairstyle, but we'll go ahead, move past his mullet, look at his game, and he's gonna fill in a great hole. He's white, so we just love drafting white O linemen. It's a fact; they're just good, and we certainly, I think, would have him fit in great as a culture fit, and then as a player, I mean, we're filling up the void that Kevin Zeitler made, because we did get Kevin Zeitler as that little band-aid for the position. Yes, we got Mahogany as those late round picks. We got Christian Mahogany, who could come up to start in this role, but I think you're at pick 60. You don't really have huge needs elsewhere, and there's not really any, luxury picks here. Like, there's no Jaden Higgins. There's nothing that's fallen this far that's like, oh yeah, no, that's a no-brainer. So we have them adding Tate Ratledge and getting a solid guard option who is a true guard.
I will also say, like mullets, whatever, but on offensive linemen, you want them to have a mullet. You want them to have that mullet mentality when they're playing offensive line. I just feel like any offensive lineman I've ever seen with a mullet, I'm like, yeah, he's a good offensive lineman. He's going to block pretty damn well.
As we said earlier, they passed the eye test, all right? And after you pass it off to me for the Lions, we're at pick 61, where I've got the Commanders once again, and we have them going Darian Porter, the corner out of Iowa State. Now, they have needs at corner pretty heavily, and I said I was going to pass on it in round one because they've got Marshawn Lattimore and let that produce a little bit more. And at the end of round two, we have him picking a corner because, yeah, they still kind of need help, and he is still kind of an older player, but he's not as bad as you would think. Oh, we need to fix that with round one immediately. We gave up these picks for him, but that was a mistake. I think, you add another young corner behind him, one who's certainly a riser in the draft, and you give him a chance. He only has 7 starts, I believe, for Darian Porter, so you got to give him some reps. You got to see him in some practice. So he's kind of a flyer. He's kind of a risk you're taking in round two, but it's a need, so the risk is going to be quite worth it.
Yeah, and having Lattimore and Jonathan Jones as mentors for him will probably be better for his development than most other places that he would go this early on. Mm-hmm. Then at pick 62, we have the Bills taking TJ Sanders, defensive lineman out of South Carolina. Sanders will slot in nicely as a rotational interior defensive line piece for the Bills. Outside of Ed Oliver, they don't have a ton at the interior of their defensive line. And I recall last offseason when they were blowing everything up and just releasing everybody, the interior of that defensive line was extremely depleted. And so we had them kind of focusing on that in a couple of the mocks, taking Johnny Newton if he fell that far, I think. But this time around, we will have them addressing that need, or that possible still need, at the tail end of the second round, where it might be a bit better value just to add some depth pieces.
Yep. And then at pick 63, we have the Chiefs taking Darius Alexander, D lineman out of Toledo. They want to keep their defense dominant. I think with, the issues they've had on offense, you could say, well, they need to add to the offense, but they're retaining Hollywood Brown. And in the late first, we had them take that tackle of the future. So I think you'd go with the defensive ad. You add another body next to Chris Jones, next to George Karlaftis, and you really continue the domination that this defense had all throughout last year. You let that carry over, and you hope some health concerns with Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown clear up, and you're able to have a good offense to pair with that defense.
Yep. Then at pick 64, last pick of the mock, we've got the Eagles taking Jalen Noel, wide receiver out of Iowa State. He is a draft crush of many. Seeing him sitting here, the Eagles decide to pull the trigger at a great slot prospect, or a great smaller receiver prospect. It is absolutely a luxury pick, but as mentioned in the first round, the Eagles are in a better position than anyone to make those luxury picks and just get better for the future. I'm not saying that A.J. Brown is on the decline, or that Devontae Smith is not going to be around in this league for very much longer, but adding a third wide receiver that can actually make an impact this late in the draft even, I think is a thing that the Eagles could do to try to stay at the top of the league, rather than having a bit of Super Bowl hangover and falling off a little bit going into next season.
Yeah, and especially when you consider that throughout the whole second round, we kind of had those, those versatile / interior offensive linemen go, which could be another spot they go. We had, 2 defensive linemen go right before them, so they're not going to make another addition for the interior of the defensive line there. This is the pick that makes sense, because all of those kind of need-based picks are kind of off the board. All the value is gone from them at the end of the second round. So you're going to go ahead, you're going to get value, and you're going to get, while it might not be a need, because it is a bit of a luxury, you're adding Jalen Noel to that offense, and it could definitely work wonders for them.
That's it. That's the 2-round mock. 2 rounds done. Done and dusted. Under an hour. Congrats, guys. We've done it. And with all of those picks out of the way, with everything that we have said, let us know if we are off base on any of your team's needs. If you have insight into any of your teams, please drop it down in the comments below. We will use that for our final mock, which we will be starting shortly after the upload of this 2-round mock, to get that out right before the draft. It's in a week, right? From the upload date?
From release, yeah, I think this is dropping Friday, so it's actually 6 days from now. So
yeah.
Definitely going to be typing away, get those comments down there, so that way we get those opinions on what your team needs. As soon as possible, we'll go ahead, start scripting away, and figuring out just how we think the mock will go.
Yeah.
The real draft will go.
If you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe, stick around for the rest of our draft season content and beyond, because we do have more than just draft season content and regular season content. We also have off-season content in the lull of the off-season period. So definitely stick around for that. Got some good stuff dropping then. But with all that, do you have any words of wisdom for these people to live their lives by?
If you're watching this on the day it released, go check out the Emeka Ibuka scouting report that I have dropping tomorrow. If you're watching this the day after it released, you can watch it. It's probably live right now. And, like, subscribe, do all of those things. Check out all our videos, because we're cool, and you should like us if you're cool. Deuces.